Hello dear and beloved friends and colleagues, and today I will show you the pump technique. I must say that this is one of my favorite techniques. This is a technique that I regularly use for myself, regularly use for my clients, and it gives very good results. Let's see what it looks like right now. Take a full breath. Take a half exhalation. Hold your breath. Do not breathe. Inflate your tummy in a tummy tuck. And cyclically, rhythmically inflate your tummy, then pull in your tummy until you feel that it is time to inhale and exhale. And enough. So now I will tell you about this technique while our muscle is resting. First, this technique is good for working with yourself. The moment you understand the basic trick, then you're able to practice on yourself. Secondly, it is good in relation to clients, because you train clients and in addition you are able to solve any problem with the condition of the diaphragm, abdominal cavity in clients, and noticeably observe the result. Why is this one of the best practices? The fact is that this practice allows you to feel the work of the diaphragm. At the moment when my model takes a delay, begins to inflate the tummy and retract it, this is actually an isolated work of the diaphragm. We inflate, we pull. Pay attention, something in her stomach rumbled, some kind of movement began. This movement is due to the fact that when we tense the diaphragm, the intestines move down, and when we relax the diaphragm, the intestines move up. Accordingly, it is extremely useful for a huge number of processes. Firstly, at the moment when we either move the intestines down or leave them up, we help the intestines get rid of adhesive processes. The fact is that the vast majority of people who come to see me have problems with the digestive system. Inflammation in the digestive system leads to the fact that the intestinal walls begin to grow together, and this is very bad for the functioning of the whole organism. At the moment when we move the intestines up and down, we separate a small fusion between the intestines, and this is useful. Secondly, in a huge number of people, the intestines are generally shifted down, which leads to a huge number of problems with the legs, varicose veins, inflammatory processes in the pelvic floor, edema, and so on. Accordingly, at the moment when we lift the intestines, we contribute to the fact that the lower half of the body begins to work much better. In addition to these, we help peristalsis through the intestines. The thing is, the gut is a muscular tube. Due to the wave-like contraction, the muscular tube pushes the lump of food, and thus the process of digestion is carried out. In some cases, some parts of the intestines are in spasm or lack tone. So the work of the diaphragm really helps to push food through and improve the functioning of the intestines. It is very important to understand here that if the intestines stopped working at some point in some segment, then there is little chance that we will start working on its own. But if you regularly stimulate it, massage it, then there is a high probability that the intestines will fully recover. It helps with constipation, it helps with diarrhea, for example it helps with gas formation. It is an extremely effective, useful technique for digestive problems. I can also add here that, for example, it is good for the functioning of the biliary tract or good for the condition of the pancreas, which you constantly massage. In addition, it is good for the kidneys and liver. In addition to this, we must remember that the abdominal cavity is a place where a huge number of lymph nodes. Every time you inflate the tummy, you squeeze them and thus stimulate the outflow of lymph towards the venous angle. And at the moment when you draw in the tummy, you contribute to the fact that the lymph from the lower extremities, from the genitals, passes into the lymph nodes located in the abdominal cavity. And that's not all, because this practice allows you to become aware of your diaphragm, relax it, change and improve your psycho-emotional state. If you ask me how to live longer and more prosperously, I would tell you, be sure to practice your breathing. And if I were asked which practice will be the first in the cycle of breathing practices, I would say that it is definitely a pump practice. Why is it so cool? It's cool because you're working with the respiratory system, but you're not actually distracted by the breath itself. You're working with the main respiratory muscle in isolation, and in this way you're aware and train it, and at the same time you're not distracted by breathing. Why is it so important? The fact is that a huge number of people have a paradoxical process of breathing. Many people, for example, pull in the stomach on the inhale and inflate it on the exhale, which is paradoxical and very harmful. When a person exhales and inflates the stomach, it relaxes the stomach, and this causes it to be not good for the tops of the lungs. And when a person draws in the stomach and inhales, it is extremely beneficial for the diaphragm and internal organs. It may be a practice for 5 minutes, but if it becomes a practice for a lifetime, then it shortens your lifespan by 10 years. A separate important point is the understanding that it is very important for us to perform a half-breath pump. If you do the practice at the moment of a full breath, this is fraught with complications, so be extremely careful here. The fact is that the aorta, the main artery that departs from the heart, passes through the diaphragm. If we pump at the moment of maximum inhalation, this causes the aorta to constrict, which can lead to very unpleasant consequences in the head, for example, causing a headache. It won't kill you, but it can cause unpleasant consequences in the form of high blood pressure or migraines, so be careful. Inhale a small amount of air and pump on a small amount of air. Let us now look into the details of how this practice can be done. The first option is on a delay on a half breath. You can perform sharp cyclic retraction and inflation. This is great for helping the body deal with spikes and stimulate the digestive process in a highly effective way. We are resting. The second option is when you make a delay and perform as slow and smooth movements as possible. Inflate and retract. Inflate slowly. Note that at this point the body has found a bunch of places where it can't move. It is extremely beneficial for the muscles of the abdominal wall. It helps to improve the shape of the abdomen, helps the body to recognize those pieces of muscles that are not working properly, and corrects with the help of the deep section of the nervous system. In addition, the slow implementation of the practice is extremely beneficial for working with the lymphatic system and for improving the functioning of the digestive system. In addition to being extremely beneficial for health, this practice is very effective in improving appearance. The fact is that at the moment when you either tense or relax the muscles, you are actually training the abdominal wall. In addition, the moment you do this practice, you improve the condition of the internal organs, which, being inflamed, prevent the muscles from being tense. Here is a very important point. If the internal organs are inflamed, then the body will turn off the muscles of the abdominal wall in order, God forbid, not to injure the inflamed problematic organs. At that moment, when you squeeze and release the organs on a regular basis, they improve their condition and thus allow the muscles of the abdominal wall to be in greater tone. Accordingly, by practicing the pump on a regular basis, for 10 to 12 cycles every day, you can expect to improve your appearance in the horizon from 2 weeks to a month. At first, I recommend that you practice the pump exclusively in the prone position. This is due to the fact that for some time your body will be cleansed of decay products of stagnant lymph. In addition, due to the fact that we work with the aorta compressing and relaxing, we change cerebral circulation. Accordingly, if you do the pump in a standing or sitting position, we risk getting dizzy at some point, and thus this may not be very good for your safety. After you have pumped for 10 to 14 days, you can move on to pumping while standing or sitting. For example, I can say that I periodically make a pump at the moment when I'm driving in a car and standing at a traffic light, or for example at the moment when I ride in the elevator. Similarly, I either inflate or retract my stomach. This is extremely helpful. Here we are seeing a great example of how I work with my clients, and it's very important that clients receive changes in their bodies and their lives. In some cases, this can be realized through the fact that we massage people. In some cases, it can be realized through the fact that we teach a person some useful practices. It is very important that at least once in the process of how you work with a person makes a pump with you, because a person discovers that there is nothing complicated here, that everything works out, that if a person feels some unpleasant consequences, we said here is where a mistake has been made, and in this way the person is able to do the practice safely. Well, in conclusion, I will tell you how I recommend doing this practice. First, the number of repetitions matters. Not how tightly during the day you do this practice. Relatively speaking, we can do a certain number of repetitions in the morning, a certain number in the afternoon, and a certain number in the evening. In a sense, it will be even more useful if you do them at the same time. For example, in the morning, you can do one movement at a time. By one movement, I mean one delay. At the moment when you have drawn the right and comfortable amount of air into your lungs and into your tummy, you perform a delay and perform a retraction and inflation. On one delay, it is recommended to perform about 8 to 16 movements. If you do not get 8 movements, there is nothing to worry about. Your ideal task is simply to score about 100 retractions, inflating the abdomen in one day. Accordingly, you perform one delay, perform about 8 to 16 retractions, inflations, and if you're tired, then take a break and return to practice after a while. If you can do the practice all at once, that's fine and you can do it once. Pay attention to how you feel after practice. If during the practice you feel relieved, cheerful and fresh, this is a good result and you should continue in the same spirit. If after practice you feel tired, dizzy or have some unpleasant consequences, for example you have an outburst of emotions, this indicates that you have touched on the material that is the problem of your life. For example, there is an inflammatory process, the lymph from the inflamed lymph nodes has gone to wander around the body, and the body must be given some time to cope with this toxic blow. Therefore, if you're doing the practice for the first time, start with 1 or 2 sets, with 1 to 2 delays, and see how your body reacts. In no case should you do a practice if you feel bad during this practice. Return to it after a while, and it will give results as you increase the load. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Do not forget to like it. I'm sure this video will be useful for a huge number of your friends and acquaintances. Feel free to send a link. I'm sure they will be grateful to you. And also be sure to write in the comments about your personal experience, how this practice was for you and what results it led you to. It will be interesting to me personally. I read all your comments. And with you as always was Stanislav Chernog, the author and creator of the online school Vector Massage and Somatics and the video channel of the same name, where we talk about health, give useful and simple tools on how to improve our health, and most importantly, how to make money on this. Until we meet again, friends, goodbye.